Right. I know we could all keep grooving to that, but I promise we have more entertainment coming your way. Hello and welcome everyone to Locking In Loyalty with Braze featuring KFC, Western Europe, and CVS Health. We have folks joining us from around the globe. I see Texas, England, Berlin, New York. So wonderful to see you all. Thank you all for being here with us today. My name is Ishan Sharma, and I am a creative strategist at Braze. I am very excited to be your host today. I am also a self proclaimed loyalty enthusiast. So, yes, those were heart glasses that I was wearing. I love learning what's trending when it comes to strategies, tactics, experiences that brands are providing to build loyalty with their customers in today's world. Don't get me started on my obsession with the year in review campaign and how many I got over the holidays. And today, I'm thrilled to welcome two very special guests from brands that excel when it comes to locking in loyalty. And that will be Paweł Luberadsky, Chief Digital and Technology Officer at KFC Western Europe, and Austin Head, Product Manager at CVS Health. I've got questions and they've got answers, and I can't wait to learn more from them. But just a few quick reminders about this webinar before we get started. This is being recorded and will be emailed to you in a couple of days, so stay on the lookout for that. But the next one is don't be shy. Please engage in the chat throughout. I want the chat to feel like a giant group text that we're all a part of talking about loyalty together. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and reactions as we continue the conversation. And last but not least, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the Q&A tab on the right-hand side, and we'll have time at the very end of the conversation to get those answered. Now, let's not waste a beat and get right into it. And before I welcome our panelists up, I want to get us all speaking the same love language, or in other words, align on how we think about loyalty and delineate the difference between retention. I always see these terms get interchanged. When we think of retention, we think of brands that successfully keep users around, holding on to customers they acquire over a specific time frame, opening the app, performing some action, etc. Loyalty, however, is when brands build meaningful connections between customers and the brand, the emotional attachments that customers have that ultimately drives a mutually valuable relationships. If retention is dating, loyalty is a long-term commitment. Just because open an app over time doesn't necessarily mean I'm in love with it. So I wanted to call out this difference and share today's focus is on the loyalty part of the equation. Now, today is probably the last day I can get away with saying the words New Year, but can we all agree that in 2025, it's a new year, but we have the same dream of forming relationships with loyal customers? I think now more than ever, brand loyalty isn't just a buzzword, it's a necessity for brands that seek to thrive and stand out. If I were to simply answer why a brand would want a loyal customer, it's because loyal customers are not just customers, they're your brand advocates. They're more valuable, they generate more profits for you, they cost you less to retain, and quite simply, they are the happiest. They will talk about you amongst their communities. And this in itself has compounding benefits for your brand. However, a brand to customer love story is a little complicated. Now, I don't mean to sound like an infomercial, but I have a few questions for you all. Are you tired of customers not being monogamous to your brand? Are you finding it difficult to deepen relationships with your customers? Are you ready to take your loyalty game to the next level? If you said yes to any of those, you're in the right place because data shows that people on average belong to 18 loyalty programs, yet use less than half. The strategies that are being deployed by brands are getting increasingly sophisticated, making it tougher to stand out. It's much more than just points today. It's about being talked about. It's about exceptional experiences, emotional connections. But the good news is that there are ways to capture your customers' hearts and keep them coming back for more. Now, in the spirit of starting a new year, I'd actually love to gauge from everyone before we get started on what your vision board for your loyalty strategy looks like in 2025. These responses can help our panelists know where everyone stands today with your own loyalty strategy. And the options are followed. Are you getting started on building a foundation? Are you enhancing an existing loyalty initiative? Or are you scaling a successful loyalty strategy? We can see the results come in live, so go ahead and click where you are today, or what your loyalty vision board looks like. This is the first vision board I'm actually working on before my actual vision board, so getting a head start here. And so far, we are seeing the majority of people starting on building a foundation. That's excellent. You're in the right place for that. All right, I'll give just a few more seconds to let the responses in. Cool. It looks like most of the people were starting on building a foundation. Well, before before we continue and I welcome our panelists, I want to now introduce the Braze formula to lock in loyalty, and that's earn, deepen, and spread. We're going to reference this formula throughout today's conversation, but I want to show how we approach the formula to locking in loyalty with our customers when it comes to customer engagement. And it starts with earn by building trust. So this typically applies to brand new users. But at Braze, we conducted a study with customers where people actually ranked brand trust over discounts as a key factor that motivates repeat purchases. So ideas to earn loyalty would be capturing the preferences with your zero-party data collection strategy right from the users themselves, prime for their communications, whether that's push notifications, emails, or SMS, and demonstrate early progress with your brand. The next phase is deepen loyalty by personalizing the experience. People want personalization. So drive further engagement by telling data stories, recommendation campaigns, or even gamify the experience for those that are in the heart of their journey with your brand. And finally, spread loyalty by celebrating achievements. Turn customers into brand advocates by building community and driving organic growth. Referred customers are proven to be much more valuable than regularly acquired customers. So ideas to spread loyalty include providing shareable content or delivering exclusive experiences to your most loyal fans to give them something to brag about. And now, without further ado, I would love to welcome our panelists, Powell and Austin, over to the stage and to get today's conversation started. All right. Oh, thanks all of you guys for being today. I'd love for everyone to get to know you a little bit better. So if you could just share a little bit more about your roles and how you touch customer engagement and how you're doing today. Powell, let's start with
Regards, Pavel. I head up the digital team here in KFC Europe, so super stoked to be here and speak to you all about loyalty and engagement. It's been a passion of mine. I've been operating in digital experience space for over 20 years, kind of slowly moving from those early HTML websites towards kind of in-store digitalization, which is our primary focus here at KFC, and how can we actually leverage technology and data to be more relevant to our customers and make sure they can find our delicious product whenever they want. So thanks for having me.
So we got an expert on the call, no big deal. I'll try not to get hungry talking about KFC. Austin, more welcome. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, of course. Excited to see all of you guys. My name is Austin. I'm a product manager here at CVS Health. I've only been here for about 5 years, but across that time, I spent time working on our push notifications, our in-app messages, our notification center, all different ways that we engage and build loyalty with our customers across the app. Because our team really is focused on, engagement for everybody, it means that we work on health initiatives, pharmacy initiatives, connecting people with our brand store. It's been a ton of fun connecting with people across our business and super excited to talk about sort of how we're building loyalty for all of our different customer segments.
That is awesome. Congrats on your 5 years. And what I'm really excited about today is just the diversity of today's panel, everyone. KFC and CVS Health. Obviously, two very different brands, but striving towards the same goal of user loyalty. So let's go ahead and jump in and start at the very beginning, which is building a foundation. That the majority of the responses from today's audience was focused on building a foundation when it comes to building user loyalty. I'd love to start by asking, in your opinions, what can brands do to get started and build a foundation for loyalty? Or, in other words, looking at that framework that we looked at, how do you earn user loyalty? Powell, let's start with you and your thoughts here.
I mean, it's still starts at the fundamental kind of marketing question, like which audience do you truly want to engage with and what is the tone of your voice? I think once you've established these as a baseline and you're really firm about it, because it's not just about having a nice slide on a PowerPoint presentation, but it's about actually aspiring and for the entire organization to follow these principles. And if you start there, then you can start looking at ways of engaging with customers, meaning defining the channels through which you want to talk to them to be most relevant to these target audiences, and then defining, kind of message or a life cycle program to be able to accommodate from the very start of your relationship to maintenance and reinvigoration. So it's all about actually starting, with the goal in mind and the long-term vision for how you want to communicate with your brand. I mean, loyalty is not something that you buy or design, it's something that you earn. And in order to do that, you really need to be kind of transparent with your customers. Why would they want to engage with you on an ongoing basis and never leave you for your competition?
I really love how you phrase that. I think the brand tone is super important. It's loyalty is not something you buy, you earn. Really, really well said. Awesome. I'd love to hear your perspective here on how to get started.
Yeah, of course. And Paul, I just want to highlight, I really love that you said that, you start early, you sort of prioritize or highlight the value you're giving the customer really early on. And you think of it not just as like a message, but sort of a life cycle the customer is going through. Because I think that is a really, really big part about building loyalty. I mean, when we think about building loyalty here at CVS, we think a lot about that early on creating value, building trust, sort of being really transparent with the consumer. When they're coming to us, here's sort of the communication we're going to send you. Here's why it's valuable. And tailoring that to why the customer is coming to CVS. I think, Paul, you mentioned something about understanding customer needs, delivering a very authentic message. That's super important, especially when you get really diverse customer segments. When we think about building loyalty, when we think about building that foundation for customer trust, one thing that's super important for us is sort of the data that we're collecting and how we're using that to personalize the messages we're sending you. When we know who you are, when we know why you're coming to us, we can send you the content, send you the information, send you the recommendations that you really care about, that allow us to show we understand why you're coming to us. And that helps us build trust so that customer keeps coming back and builds that strong long-term relationship.
Absolutely. I love that both of you touched on transparency and just explicitly telling the user what to expect on their journey. I think now more than ever, it's so important considering the noise of messages that we all receive and the volume of messages that we receive in so many different channels. So, very well said. I'm also loving how the chat is popping off. So, I am noticing that, everyone. But all right. So, now I'd love to move on to talking about the customer lifecycle and just kind of acknowledging that there's so many touch points in the customer lifecycle. I think purchase journeys and the way users interact with your brands is getting more complicated and happening in more places now, more than ever, with the number of devices and the places you can interact. Um, I would love to ask, when do you start thinking about loyalty? Where in the customer life cycle do you start thinking about driving customer loyalty? Is it during the onboarding phase? Is it when someone makes a first purchase? Is it somewhere else? Austin, let's go ahead and start with you on this one.
Sure. I really don't think there's ever a point where it's too early to think about or to think about loyalty. When we look at loyalty, we really want to start right off the bat during onboarding. Something that we found really effective is, all right, you're new to CVS, you're coming into one of our programs, for example, Extra Care. You're a really fresh customer, and it's our job to excite you right off the bat. We want to make your first experience as positive as possible so that right off the bat, you're like, this is great. I'm really glad I'm here. And so we have campaigns and programs that are designed to really highlight those upfront valuable offers, highlight why this was a good choice for you. But we don't just stop there. It's not just about giving a customer an offer right off the bat and assuming that makes them loyal, assuming that makes them want to keep coming back. It's important to really celebrate, the early wins, the early victory, the early value that you're providing to a customer. That second screenshot there, you're seeing, if you go into a CVS store right now, you make a transaction, you scan your Extra Care card, we remind you in real time sort of how much you earned, how much you've saved. And we think this is a really great way to sort of highlight to a customer, you joined Extra Care, you used a coupon that we provided you during onboarding. Here's how much you've already saved. Here's how much you've already earned. Really driving home the value that you're providing you and celebrating that you're winning with our program right off the bat. And then, when we think about customer loyalty, it's not just that first or second interaction, it's that ongoing conversation. And so we really do want to highlight, as you stay engaged with CVS, as you spend our programs, the value that you've received over time. This is actually a screenshot that I got a couple months back. If you can't tell, I'm an active CVS shopper. And it's reminding me that in the last month, I saved, almost $30, and over the last year, nearly $300. And it's a great way that we found to sort of look back and be like, you've been engaged with us for so long. Here's the value you already received. This is why, you want to be a part of this program.
Absolutely awesome. I think we're going to need a follow-up session on how to maximize your savings at CVS Health. But that we'll save that for another time. But thank you for sharing. I think that's great to see starting to think about loyalty, very early on in the life cycle. So that's great. Powell, we'll love to hear from you. When do you start thinking about customer loyalty when it comes to all things KFC?
Absolutely. I mean, I happen to have a pleasure of working for a brand that is really a happy brand. I mean, whenever you say that you work for KFC, there is a smile on people's faces. And I think it comes from the fact that we're effectively a brand that is used to celebrate, to indulge, to essentially enjoy life. So for us, I mean, the loyalty actually starts with trial, right? Because essentially speaking, once you've tried out, finger licking good food, you want to come back for more. So the first actual step is for consumers to try it out. It might sound as a surprise for some of the colleagues from the US, but in Europe, there's still more people who haven't tried KFC than have. So it's hard to believe, but that's the reality that we're faced with. So, kind of driving trial and acquisition is one of the most important aspects of starting that loyalty conversation on one hand, and then building, those customer usage occasions. So really finding our customers where they really need us and where they could really enjoy us. So really maintaining that relationship. So we as a brand stay on top of mind for those moments of indulgence that our customers actually want to engage with. So I would say, in Europe specifically, trial and the first purchase is extremely important, and then kind of building the habit, right? Whether it's a game night or a Friday night dinner with the family, or kind of Saturday evening craziness. Those are kind of the occasions that we want to remind our customers that our brand is made for.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see the future of KFC in Europe, but it sounds like it's obviously off to a great start. Let's talk about measurement and switch it up a little bit. So we talked about when to start thinking about loyalty, at what phase of the customer journey you start thinking about it. But now let's say the user has performed those actions. How do you really know if your loyalty strategy is successful, or just measure if a user is loyal? Every industry and company has their own ways of measuring loyalty. And so we'd love to switch it up and ask how you actually measure loyalty and whether you know a customer is on the path to becoming loyal, or the opposite, if they're on the path to becoming a lapsed user. Powell, what are your thoughts here?
I mean, for me, there are multiple ways of looking at it, and we always engage in these conversations, right? Sometimes it's, you can put a actual measurement metric, so dollar value on a customer and how do you increase that. Sometimes it's about frequency. But I think the one that could apply across industries is again going back to the basics of RFM segmentation and trying to move these customers on the frequency and on the retail value metric and move them from one segment to another. I mean, this is something that we have only just started exploring and deploying at KFC, but I feel there is a future in this, because only if we've mastered those basic behavioral kind of patterns and actually use them to speak to our customers in the right moment with the right message, we can get engaged with much more elaborate kind of approaches towards maintaining, let's say, the frequency or increasing frequency. I mean, we have customers who eat with us every week or even more often, and those are the kind of hardcore users. You don't need to necessarily kind of engage with them too much. They just know what they like. They come or they order online and they truly enjoy it. But for some other customers, maybe the first, second purchase has been accidental or incidental, meaning they were on the road, they happened to be in a drive-through which offered KFC, or they got kind of dragged in by a member of a group. And we want these customers to actually explore our menus, explore our the experience of the store or of the online order, and actually start building these habits. So very often it's about that, not necessarily the second or third purchase, but fourth or fifth purchase with KFC, because then we truly know that the habit is essentially being built. And I think, again, loyalty is a long-term game. It's very difficult to earn it, and it's very easy to lose it. So you have to manage it quite carefully. But again, linking back to my initial statement, if you're truly transparent and open about why you're engaging with customers, I think that's something that can be actually benefiting the brand experience itself.
I really love how you tied that back to the foundation of how we got started to begin with. I also really love the spectrum of customers you portrayed, from the accidental purchase to the one that has it weekly. Powell, where do you fit on that spectrum? Are you a weekly KFC indulger, or somewhere in the middle, or on the other side?
I have my runs, when I do a lot of travels in the on the market, and very often, we visit restaurants to find out, how the experience is going, to talk to the team members, get them engaged, get them kind of onboarded with the brand. And those are the weeks where I'm not only just eating there daily, but sometimes even a couple of times a day, because, to show the encouragement to the team. So, comes and goes, but I do eat my fair share.
I love it. Brand research at its best. All right. And Austin, I'd love to hear your perspective about measuring loyalty when it comes to interactions with CVS Health.
Yeah, definitely. I think something Paula mentioned, sort of like that frequency, how often the customer is coming back to your brand, to your restaurant, to your app, is super important. But I'm going to preface it by saying that, loyalty for us might look different than loyalty for Owl, which might look different than loyalty for you. And so when we think about measuring loyalty, we look at it in two ways. First are sort of general metrics. These are metrics that are really applicable to everybody, potentially across multiple businesses and across multiple different segments of your customers. Think of things like session count or session frequency, how often the customer is coming back to your brand, to your product, to your app, session duration, session recency, sort of things that are applicable to everybody. But then, because you will have a lot of different customer segments, because customers will choose to engage with your brands in different ways. And, at least at CVS, because we have so many different value drivers for the customer, we also have different sort of measures for loyalty and ways to gauge loyalty based on different customer segments. So for example, we have a really robust front store retail extra care business. These are people who are coming to us because we offer great deals, because they like the convenience. And so when we look at the loyalty of these customers, we're looking at how they engage with our front store. Are they engaging with our coupons? Are they shopping in our stores? Do they use in-app functionality that makes their in-store transactions easier? Versus people that are actively part of our pharmacy segment. Loyalty for those customers will look very different. It might be, whether they've enrolled in a prepay program at the pharmacy to make that trip easier, or whether they've been consistently filling prescriptions on time for a period of time. And then both of those will look very different from our health sector customers, people who we might gauge loyalty based on, minute clinic appointment adherence, or engagement with post-visit recommendations or notes. And so when we're looking at measuring loyalty, yes, we're looking at these general metrics like frequency and engagement, but it really does matter more sort of what customer or what segment the customer is in, and the actions that define loyalty for that specific segment.
I really like the split of general versus business unit metrics. I think it's, even though it's one brand of CVS and CVS Health, there's so many different use cases and needs that customers would have to go and approach CVS. And so defining loyalty for each of those segments is really, really critical. So thank you for that. All right, foundation checked. We know how to get started. We know how to think about segmentation. Let's now talk about the fun part, which is the actual customer engagement, the messages or your own love language that your brand speaks to your customers, I'd love, and I'm sure the audience would love to hear as well, for you to elaborate on how you specifically use Braze and customer engagement to lock in loyalty with your users. Or, in other words, from the framework that we looked at, how do you deepen loyalty and how do you get users to spread loyalty with your brands? Fascinated to hear more. Powell, let's kick it off to you for this one.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, first things first, like, and I can see a lot of action in the chat also about loyalty, and one thing that is, you know, it's being the multiple terms are being used there, but very often we consider loyalty to be a loyalty program, and loyalty program meaning there's some sort of earn and burn or a stamp card like experience, but the truth is loyalty is much more than that. So when designing that program, you can it also needs to be aligned with your brand message, with your brand language. And so at KFC specifically, we have, certain kind of fundamental values of the brand that are relating to to our key products or hero products that we want our customers to try. It's also about those moments that I mentioned. And in order to actually kind of emphasize these moments, our markets, so our regional teams are actually building their own kind of language, which is locally relevant, utilizing those assets like buckets, like those delicious burgers or beverage that we're serving, and actually dress them up in the language that fits their local tone of voice. In Europe specifically, we have very creative team in Spain who's developed a very unique, very light-hearted, very sometimes sarcastic language across multiple platforms, and they're actually leveraging it through their push notifications. So it becomes even more of an engagement with very simple, very snappy content to be able to actually maintain that relationship. It doesn't have to be, buy one, get one free or earn more points and get 50% off. Very often it's, hey, we're KFC, we're still cool, just like yesterday. Think about us next time you get hungry or you crave for some, finger licking chicken. In some other markets, it's much more kind of, find out we're opening a new restaurant or a new channel, or we're now, or a new product is coming over. So it then becomes a bit more of a retail language. So in all honesty, like, KFC is an inclusive brand globally. We have our hero products, but we allow our local markets to actually develop the language and actually that also the mix of messaging and the messaging channel to fit that strategy. So I think it's very important to essentially avoid kind of cookie cutter approach where you take a global, loyalty program, 1 point $1, and just throw it out there at customers, because it will disappear in the sea of sameness of many other brands. I mean, we don't want to be another supermarket program or a petrol station program. We want to actually the communication that builds loyalty to support and enhance our brand perception and awareness. So.
Powell, you answered 3 questions in one. You answered how to stay relevant. You answered what is trending when it comes to loyalty. It's no longer just about discounts, it's about localizing your messages. I thought that was beautifully said. I think that's really good advice for all brands that use Braze and customer engagement when it comes to building loyalty. It's speaking the language of your audience, no matter where they are. Thank you so much for sharing that. Austin, would love to hear your perspective now when it comes to using Braze and speaking CVS Health's love language to customers. How does that look like?
Of course. And just to say, this is a tough act to follow. I think I very much understand why Powell is running the ship over there for KFC. He has a great understanding of how loyalty works. When we look at leveraging Braze to build loyalty and deepen our customer engagement, we really focus on our app channels. Braze is how we power our in-app and our push notifications. And we use these two in very different ways. So, I mean, anyone who's familiar with push notifications will sort of know these are things that pop up on your home screen. They're not inside the app. They're a little bit disruptive. And because they sort of pop up on your home screen, they are a great way to sort of make sure that your brand and CBS in general just stays top of mind. Because it's an own channel, we have a little bit more control over sort of what we're saying, the content we're delivering, sort of how we're triggering that content. And so we're using push notifications as sort of a way to stay top of mind for the customer, bring them back into our app, send them real-time updates. And then once they've sort of started to re-engage, once they've found those messages compelling, we're following up and doubling down with in-app notifications that provide more space for dynamic content, more beautiful visuals, um, more imagery and text that helps educate the customer, and using those to deepen engagement. So think of things like a lightweight or feature-specific onboarding. We start sending you notifications, sort of get you engaged, highlight programs that we have, and then we launch a new feature. You open the app. We're able to use Braze to trigger in-app notifications to sort of highlight, hey, here's a new feature that's come out. Here's why it's valuable for you. Here's imagery on how you can use it. Go try it out. We see deeper engagement that way. Alternatively, we can also use it for things based on different customer segments to highlight things that matter to those specific customers. So for example, in the pharmacy side of the house, we might highlight our new fast pickup program. But for somebody that's really interested in extra care that's here because we offer a robust couponing program, that's not something that's as relevant to them, but they really do care about staying up to date with the best offers we have. And so we can use an in-app message to really prioritize a high value, large discount that they see, they go to the app, and they can really engage with. If you're looking for sort of an example of how we've used Braze to sort of deepen customer engagement, this is an upgrade to the abandoned cart campaign that we recently released. Prior to this, it was a really simple, very bare bones thing. You would add a product to your cart in the app. We would see that you hadn't made a purchase. We just sort of send you a push notification saying, hey, you didn't make a purchase. You want to come back. With Braze, using custom events, custom event properties, and a little bit of liquid that our team was able to put together, we then started pulling in real-time offer data. So these are offers that have already been provisioned. We don't have to do any extra spend to create, that the customer already has. And we found that using liquid and using the custom event properties to highlight offers that a customer already has for a product they've already looked at really boosts message open rate, 40% higher. We're seeing nearly 2.5% increase in actual purchase conversion. It's been a really great way to sort of test something new and get this out without having to make new offers, without having to build new stuff in our back end. And a really great way that sort of we've seen to use Braze to deepen our customer engagement.
This is very savvy. I think we have a Braze dashboard expert over here. Austin, I'm curious to bring this to life. What did that look like? I think this is a really impressive, advanced sort of abandoned cart use case that takes it to the next level. How did you bring this to life? What did that journey look like for you and your team?
Yeah, there were 3 stages to this journey. The first was working with our partners over in the shop side of the house to build and enhance the custom events that we needed. So things like looking at a product, adding that product to cart, making sure that the custom events included properties we needed, like product category, highest available offer, the value of that offer. It required us spending some time with Canvas and with Liquid, writing logic to look at those properties, format them in a way that they were customer readable. And then it's like involved time with our analytics and behavior change teams, looking at what is the right copy, what offers do customers respond to most, what's the optimal time that we should send this message after a customer has quote unquote abandoned their cart. But I do want to stress, almost all of this was done in Liquid and Canvas with experiment steps and audience paths. A really great way to test into how we can improve a campaign with very, very limited development resources.
That is so incredible to see. Very inspiring. I think the way you use Braze from a technical perspective, all the way to the results of the open rate increase and the purchase conversions, I think it's fascinating. So thank you so much for sharing that. I am still looking at this chat. You both have a lot of fans. Little hard to keep up with that. We are all right, rolling along. Let's see. What can we? Okay. I guess my last question for you both, is when it comes to approaching, when it comes to standing out as a brand, what advice do you have for our audience today, whether that's getting started, whether that's building on an existing initiative or scaling a successful strategy? What do we want our audience to kind of keep in mind? And any advice that you would maybe share to your earlier self when you were starting out with building your loyalty strategies? What comes to mind there? Powell, let's start with you.
I mean, first of all, kudos to Austin. He must be a heavy user of Brace. It feels like he's super comfortable with it, and I love that because, in all honesty, I just feel like you know if you could drive loyalty using Mailchimp or WhatsApp if you knew what they were doing as a marketeer. But what really Braze as a platform offers is that ability to test. And the ability to test is actually the answer for me to many things. I mean, first of all, very often we get hung up on the content or a single content, and people ask, "Oh, what is the best email that you send, or what is the best push notification?" But the truth is, nobody has those answers. I mean, I truly believe in the power of big numbers. So if you do have a concept, you want to test it out first, and Braze, like the experiments will give you those answers. So you can go as let's say gently and as conservatively as possible, or as crazy as possible to actually find out what sticks. I mean, as long as you're not excluding or offending anyone. I mean, this is a great way of actually finding out what truly stands out, because you look at the numbers, you look at the click-through rates or the engagement metrics that are provided in those experiments, and you can actually decide this was a message worth standing out or not. Especially as we have to pick up on the latest trends, on the latest kind of hypes that sometimes last 1 or 2 days, and then you have to be quite quick about it. You cannot really rely on a traditional way of a long-term strategy with a communication plan that is built for 2 years ahead. It just doesn't work like this. I think those who truly stand out those brands who truly stand out are the most relevant ones, and those are the ones that are testing a lot. Like the more you progress in your CRM and your loyalty journey, the more you test, and the bigger the numbers are, the more accurate your kind of statistically significant results are coming back. So whenever somebody asks me for advice or best practices, I mean, the only best practice that I can recommend is test, test, test.
Powell, I'm going to try to get myself to Western Europe this summer, download KFC, and see the different kinds of messages I'm receiving to see your tests in action. But very well said. Thank you. And Austin, your remarks in terms of giving advice maybe to anyone that's starting out with building their loyalty foundation or improving an existing one.
I think one piece of advice I would have for anybody who's looking to either build a new or enhance an existing loyalty ecosystem, program, way to engage customers, really focus on the value that you are providing the customer. It's not just enough to say, "Hey, here's a coupon," or "Hey, here's $5 or something." You need to really emphasize this is a benefit that you're getting. When you spend that benefit, here's how you're able to use that benefit. And then once they've spent that benefit, hey, here's the value you received from that benefit. Sort of making sure you put the value the customer is getting front and center, and reminding them why they want to be a loyal customer, why this is the right place for them to engage, to shop, to eat, to spend time. Really goes a long way in building loyalty for customers, and making them remember this is why I'm making this choice. This is why I'm shopping at CVS or eating at KFC.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. All right. We have a ton of questions that were received during our entire conversation. So we're just going to go ahead and get started with the first one, which is from Marik. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But the question is, how can you offer value that doesn't involve discounts? I really like this question. Austrian and Powell, which one of you would like to take that one?
Okay, I can go first. I mean, for me, like one of the biggest values of digitalization is easy access to entertainment. And if you ask me, like, what are the best kind of in-class engagement strategies, those are usually on the bring between retail and entertainment. Like retail in itself, unless you really want something at it and only are only willing to buy at a discount, it's really fun always beats the kind of the logic and the saving. So I would start there. Like think what about the engaging content from an entertainment purpose, and by entertainment I mean everything from laughs to knowledge to interesting to interesting engagements.
That's awesome. Austin, your thoughts there?
Yeah, one way to look at this, I think, is that discounts are really just a way to reduce friction as part of a purchase. If something is $5 less, it's $5 easier to get. And so, sure, discounts and promotions are a great way to reduce that friction. But there's also a lot of other ways we can make the shopping experience easier for your customers. So, for example, in our pharmacy side of the house, one complaint that we get from customers is that sometimes the line is too long, or it just takes a while to check out. We can't really offer you a discount there, but we can make it easier for you by having you check in earlier, straight from your phone, or by having you prepay so that when you get to the front of the line, it's 2 seconds in and out. Reducing friction for the customer is really a great way to provide value. And then you can translate that into marketing by highlighting how they can enroll in those programs, how they can take advantage of those features, especially if you pair it with an experience that customers recently had. So using this pharmacy example, if somebody goes and picks up a prescription, you realize they didn't use this program, you can sort of follow up and say like, hey, did you know that you can save more time down the line if you enroll in fast pickup, if you check in earlier online? Here are the different ways that even if we're not giving you money or a coupon, we're still making your life easier, so that next time you come back, it's an even better experience than the last time.
I love it. Making your life easier, happier, giving them a great experience. I think those are the two common themes that I see with both of your responses. So wonderful to see. Next question from Kunal. There must be customers not engaging digitally. How do you address a cohort that is less tech oriented?
So I'm going to preface this. I do spend most of my time at CVS focused on mobile app engagement. And so cohorts that are less tech oriented aren't necessarily my area of expertise. One thing that we have seen be successful is offer reasons for a customer to want to be more tech oriented. So, for example, a promotion that we highlight and display in store, but is only available in our mobile app. That doing promotions like that, we've seen large increases in app downloads because you have customers that come to our store. They don't really use the app, but they see like, hey, I could save $5 if I download the app, connect my account. And it gives them a reason to try the app. Once they try the app, then it's your responsibility to give them reasons to stay. And it's a whole different ballgame.
I really like that. I think app download is a common use case that I see amongst other Braze customers on how do you maximize the rate at which people are downloading your app, just given the increase in retention and loyalty that it delivers. So great to see that one. Powell, I don't know if you wanted to touch on that one. We have more questions, but you have a few words on that.
Sure, absolutely. It's a very fair question. I mean, in Europe, our customer group is extremely digital, right? I mean, 80-90% of transactions are starting to become fully digitalized. And even in restaurants, most of our customers are opting to order via kiosks. So again, a digital engagement, and we see multiple groups engaging from younger to older generations, and with of course different, let's say, ability, but they do that. And I love how Austin kind of brought it back to the app because it's the common denominator. So what we do actually on kiosk, we've recently launched access to our CRM and Braze, which is a milestone achievement for our team. But what it actually also creates is a bit of a FOMO for those customers who are not on the app yet. And this is a great way for us to expand our channel kind of penetration, but also train these customers, because if they're opted out, if they're not digitally savvy, that means there's something wrong with your UX, because those apps should be really designed with like all audiences in mind and should be extremely easy to operate. So sometimes it's as Austin said, maybe it's about just pushing them across that digital, let's say, line to actually test it out and see how easy it actually is before kind of building that stickiness.
I could talk to you both all day because you've both proven how to use Braze, very strategically. But Paolo, what I loved about that response was build bringing that experience into the kiosks and building FOMO. I think that's a very creative approach, to get someone that's not as tech oriented to become tech oriented, and using the app as a common denominator. I think it's a smart move, and it is what the world it is today's world. So great to see that. All right, another question from Kunal: how many notifications do you cap on average per day for users? Let's keep this a short one, and we'd love to hear, are any top of mind a number of frequency messages that you cap for your users per day?
Promotional, 2 or 3 a week. I don't think we necessarily have a day cap. I'd recommend no more than like 2 a day, depending on the value of the notification. And obviously, this excludes things like order status or contextual updates. So it's, you shouldn't really be having those.
Boom. Powell.
Just just test it out, guys. I mean, there is no answer for it. I mean, the only answer you're gonna get is how consumers engage with it. If they, disable a notification, you know that you pushed it too far, right? So it's only those test results that truly matter for me.
Brilliantly answered. Okay, next question from Anna. How do you plan for personalization at scale? What tools or strategies do you recommend for deploying messages that feels unique for each user while minimizing manual effort? Austin, do you want to take this one? I think you touched a little bit on it with your usage of liquid and connected content in your messages. Love to hear what you think when it comes to personalization at scale.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think first and foremost, personalization at scale needs to start with customer segmentation, customer cohorts. You can't just look at all of your customers and say, hey, this is going to be one big personalized message. You do need to break them down into buckets, sort of based on things like demographics, but also ways they engage with the business, the value they're seeing, why they're coming back to you. And then when you do personalization at scale, Braze makes it super easy with things like liquid and connected content. We can, when we build a message, automatically pull in a customer's name, automatically pull in a specific promotion that that customer has that somebody else might not have. And then if, you factor in custom events, custom attributes, contextual data on ways they use your app, you can build messaging streams that are, entirely triggered on the actions that Ishan is taking or Powell is taking or Austin is taking. And once you set that up, you don't really need to continue manually working on it because it's triggered based on how a customer engages.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. We have time for about 1 to 2 more questions. So from Chantal, hope I'm pronouncing that right as well. How do you do all of this with so much noise? Customers are getting difficult to reach. I really like that question. I think we touched on that in the beginning, in a sea of messages and platforms that you can receive messages, and the strategies that brands are deploying in today's day with really earning loyalty. How do you do all this? Powell, maybe would love to hear from your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't want to sound too boring about it, but again, it's about testing what works. I mean, for me, our customers are essentially there to because they're hungry or they're craving our food, right? So the idea is to remove all the obstacles from that process of choosing and paying and getting that food. So very often, just being as spot on with timing could be crucial. And again, setting up those tests to find out what is the exact time for that, kind of linking back to personalization to that particular person to actually send that engaging message to actually bring them to the restaurant. It's all that really matters. I mean, yes, we talk about the tone of voice and then the retailtainment, let's say, that is being used in our messaging. But for me, it's about relevant timing and relevant message. So really testing those times and the type of product that you're promoting. So you cut down on choosing effort, let's say, for them in the meantime.
If we don't launch an A/B test by the end of this webinar, I don't think we learned properly on how to lock in loyalty. So, everyone, make sure to test your strategy at the right and see what works for your users at the right time with the right message. I think that's the proven strategy that works here. To really nail it in. And yes, okay. Last question. Um, from Marley, you said loyalty is a long-term game. In that context, what is KFC doing today to ensure its loyalty program stays relevant from 5 years from now? I actually really like that question. Would love to open it up to both of you. But Pablo, maybe we start with you with that one.
There is no kind of glass ball answers here, right? I mean, the trends are changing completely. A new competitor, is likely sitting in a room like this and trying to figure out the next best thing to communicate to their customer. So what I'm trying to do is you kind of master the fundamentals, make sure our kind of basic canvases are working and are optimized from user perspective in order to actually minimize those frictions from finding and ordering our product. So that's the first and foremost kind of goal that you need to achieve to stay relevant moving forward. And then the second one is probably, and again, I mean, my those from my team who are on the call will probably smile on that one, but I'm not a great fan of these point-based loyalty programs for many reasons. But one of them is it kind of locks you in a particular mechanic that you're kind of married to for years. And so I love the flexibility that is offered by kind of marketing automation versus kind of building a more rigid loyalty program. So I think building in that kind of agility into the program to be able to adjust the type of offer, the type of benefit. I mean, customers are not going to engage with us to get a benefit in 1 or 2 years time, right? They want almost an instant reward, which means you cannot kind of plan too far ahead. You want to make sure that you're there for their next kind of purchase decision, right?
Absolutely. Very well said. Thank you so much, Powell. I really wish we could continue talking and answering more questions, but we are almost at time. So I just wanted to wrap and share everyone in the audience a few resources that we can leave you with to kind of keep thinking about loyalty and a little goodie bag of information that we have. At Braze, we just released a new guide all about loyalty. It includes the three-step formula that we shared earlier that I touched on today, along with barriers to loyalty and how to overcome them, as well as examples of campaigns on that you can implement today with Braze. And some other great resources we have in the Docs tab. The first of which is a community Ask Me Anything event that I actually hosted with Crumble. And we had some questions come in about how they approach loyalty. And it was hosted on our community platform Bonfire. So check out the answers to those. We obviously will have a recording of today's session and a recording of another Forge session that we had from last year on how to generate loyalty across every channel. That featured Austin again. He was on stage, as well as our friends at Deloitte and Wynn Resorts. And then lastly, we have a link to start a 14-day free trial with the Braze customer engagement platform. This has been so exciting. Thank you all so much for joining from all around the world and for engaging in the chat. This was way more than I thought it would be. Austin and Powell, you guys did such a phenomenal job at answering all these questions. Let's stay in touch, everyone. Let's keep talking about loyalty. We're just getting started here. I think there is a lot of exciting trends and opportunities to bring loyalty strategies to life with Braze. And so without further ado, I will leave you all to the rest of your days, but I hope you were inspired. And thank you all so much for joining. Have a wonderful day.